Hey, welcome, welcome. I am Shar. Consider me your family, your neighbor, your friend, willing to have some really tough conversations, types of conversations that most people avoid because they're just uncomfortable. And I'm thankful for the grace of having difficult conversations and being able to help put our communities, our working families in a better position to navigate this adventure called life with more wisdom, insight, and empowerment. If you can hear me okay, please let me know in the chat. I love and appreciate you, Auntie Barbara, Sister Yolanda. Thank you for joining. I just want to make sure that I am broadcasting and that I am not getting cut off the last time when I went live. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. So today I want to have this conversation as something to number one, empower you if you are ever in a situation where you have been appointed as a trustee, you have been appointed as an administrator, or the other word, executor, is a common word used when it comes to estate planning. Just some real practical insights and some general legal information to help support you if you are ever in that very honored but difficult position. And for you to share this information with your children so that your children have the same access to information and empowerment concerning very practical things that we should all be prepared with instead of running into these life situations unprepared. Does that make sense? So, I want to start this off by talking about a really important probate case from the Bible. The book of Jasher has this amazing probate story. And it's stories like this why I feel like our responsibility in the community is to make sure that we have some clarity, is to make sure that we are positioning our next generation to win, right? So this story comes out of the book of Jasher, and it's about Jacob and Esau. And so, just a quick overview of Jacob and Esau. These were the twins that were fighting each other in their mother's womb, right? And Jacob just sets this trajectory with this issue with his brother because he tricked his brother out of his birthright. And he not only tricked his brother out of his birthright, he also tricked his brother out of a blessing. And these things were really, really important because they were speaking to your rights in the estate, in the probate of the family. Once your parents passed away, what your blessing would be. And interestingly enough, now this is after the time of Jacob and Esau, but in the book of Deuteronomy, it talks about what the birthright is of the firstborn child. There's a double portion that the firstborn child is entitled to. So it's a really big. I'm gonna tell you what I had to do to get this started. So are you able to hear me? Are you able to hear me now? I'm not gonna tell you what I had to do to get this unfrozen, but this was a frozen YouTube situation. I had to play a little tech in the background to get back on. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for hanging in here. I'm telling you, as Wimberley, I mean, all around, we're surrounded by you. So, but we persevere, we persevere, we press through, and we continue to show up to shine the light in the darkness. So, thank y'all for persevering with me and for giving me feedback. Um, because I got an interesting little notification, and then the feed was frozen. So, going back to this famous biblical probate case, I Isaac knows he's dying. This was kind of like the thing, right, back in those days. Hey, I know I'm dying. Let me bless my children before I go. This was the ancient custom. And so Isaac calls his sons in, and then he calls for his grandchildren so that he can bless his grandchildren. And it was understood what the birthright was. It was understood the right of the firstborn concerning dad's estate. And Deuteronomy shows us that that was actually, Deuteronomy 21:17 shows us that there's a double portion that the firstborn child receives out of all of the children. There's a way that I speculate that that's calculated, but I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole right now. So you see that Jacob and Esau, they had this beef because Jacob tricked his brother out of the right of the firstborn, and he tricked his brother out of a special blessing that his dad received, that his dad was releasing for Esau. Jacob came in and scooped it up by trickery. So Jacob dies in Egypt after his son became the king of Pharaoh. This is how it reads in the book of Jasher. Second only to Pharaoh, the king of Egypt was Joseph, Jacob's son. And he moves him and all of his family over to Egypt to survive the famine, the global famine that was taking place. And he had his children promise to him, Jacob, when I die, you bury me in the cave of Machpelah, where my fathers are buried. Why? Because this land had been purchased in Canaan for the family, and this had become the family's burial place, right? So Jacob has the funeral of a king. Like his son Joseph has him this golden beard. He has a golden crown on his dad. He places his own crown on top of his dad's beard. As they're traveling to Canaan, the Canaanite people find out, oh my goodness, Jacob has died. Like the people are coming from all over the place for this funeral. Nobles and kings are honoring the loss of Jacob, because the reputation of Jacob was all throughout that land, because him and his sons were known for throwing hands. They were known for being men of war. Like these guys were not afraid, and they had a lot of favor on them in warfare. So they were known throughout the whole region. Everybody, and this is a huge funeral party. So if you could think about the longest funeral procession you've ever sat in, like especially like on those country roads where you have to like wait for the train if you get caught by the train, and you got cars for miles and the police having to help escort you. This is kind of what it was like with the amount of people who showed up to honor Jacob and to pay their respects for his burial, his final resting. And his brother Esau got the word from the place where he lived in Mount Seir that his brother passed away. And when he first got the news, he was, of course, you get the news that someone passes away. It's like, oh my gosh, like he's grieving. He lost his brother. But here's what I think ended up happening. What leads to the next scene of foolishness, and why I'm so passionate about estate planning and family law. So Esau comes and he joins the funeral party. And he's seeing that his brother died. He died with the honor of the king. His son became the king of Egypt. And he begins remembering, like, man, this could have been me. This could have been my honor. This could have been my son. Like, that's what I think was happening in Esau's head. And it had to be, because as soon as they got to the burial place where Jacob is supposed to be laid to rest, Esau tells everybody, no, you can't bury him here. This land doesn't belong to him. And the record shows in the book of Jasher that Jacob came to his brother and offered him an equal split. Like, here's everything dad had. He had land and cattle, and he had riches. So if you think gold, silver, precious stones, this is what was in his estate. Joseph knew that he created the beef with his brother by stealing his birthright and his blessing. So Joseph made the offer, Esau, wherever you choose to have out of dad's estate, take what you want, and I'll take you. If you want to take the land, I'll take the riches. If you want to take the riches, I'll take the land. Esau went and he consulted with one of his sons about his brother's proposal. And his son was like, Dad, take the riches because Canaan doesn't belong to us. And I know that our grandfather said that we would inherit this land, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen anytime soon. It really doesn't look like that's a reality. So take the money. And that's what Esau chose. He chose to take the money and he left the land with Jacob. And they documented with 4 witnesses that this land transfer to Jacob had taken place. Jacob had full right and title to the burial grounds and all of the land that their father Isaac had before he passed away. He had clean title. That's what we call it, right? Clean title. But no, Esau pulled a stunt at the funeral. And see, this is the kind of stuff that pops off in families when we have unresolved stuff going on, right? We have these moments of unforgiveness, the things we couldn't let go of when we were kids. We can't let bygones be bygones. That stuff starts manifesting at people's funeral. And that's exactly what Esau did. And the beef that Esau started at Jacob's funeral resulted in bloodshed. They went to blows. And people died as a result of this probate matter. Not only did people die between these brothers and their children, cousins, the beef went on for another generation through one of Esau's grandsons named Zepho. He could never let it go. The bitterness of the beef in this family. And this is, look, the Bible is showing us these things that we see happening in our families today. This was happening way back in the day, right? And so that's the purpose and the spirit behind these conversations that I'm having. I want you to be equipped with practical insights, practical tools, some legal guidance on ways that you can navigate one of the most difficult experiences that we will ever experience in life, and that is the loss of a loved one. Even when that loved one is someone that you're beefing with, there's still, oh my gosh, there's no pain like the pain of loss when somebody passes away. I'm going to take the time to try to read your comments. So yeah, Garth, you know why I believe his sons were continuing to gaslight about the burial rights and stuff? Because Esau never let it go. Esau was still embittered. Esau, you know, when people are embittered against another person, they constantly talking about that person, what that person did wrong. I don't think Esau ever got over what his brother did. In fact, when you read the account of him greeting Jacob with a kiss after years of being like Jacob was in hiding, running for his life, the only reason why Esau did not kill Jacob was because there was some angelic interference to stop Esau from killing his brother, right? So this was a strong fallout in this family. What, Sister Yolanda, when the way I like to say it, when there's dying flesh, vultures show up. Wherever you have dying flesh, vultures show up. And that's why, like, this ancient probate beef and the thousands of people that died the following generation because of this bitter wound. Family, y'all, we really gotta let bygones be bygones. We really gotta bury the hatchet on some stuff. These things don't die when we die. These things continue on in our children when we've been sowing that bitterness and that heartbreak into them with the way that we continue to relive our victim story. So that was my quick moment in probate, ancient probate from the Bible. And let's get into the meat of what bills do you pay? If you're ever in a position as a probate administrator, a trustee, you might see the word administrator or executor when it comes to the person that's responsible for carrying out the final wishes, the person that's responsible for making sure that the debts of the estate are paid. It is a very honored and cherished position to be in. If someone says to you, "Hey, will you be willing to serve me by making sure that my final wishes are carried out?" It's an honored role to be in, but it is a lot of responsibility. And so I just want to talk a little bit about some of the practical things to protect yourself if you are ever in that position, or to pass this information along to the next generation about how to navigate loss, because there's nothing like getting hit with loss. Even when you're expecting someone to pass away, someone who may be older, someone who's been in the hospital for several months, you know the day is coming, it still hits. It's something in our soul that just responds to the finality of someone taking their last breath and transitioning from this life. And because it's such a trauma to your soul, you need to be aware of that. You need to be aware that this is a level of stress that requires you to really think things through and be careful not to respond out of your emotions, because it's easy to pop off and make mistakes when you're in a state of mind after you lose someone. Even if you've been beefing with them. Look, Esau showed up to Jacob's funeral crying, right? So the first thing you want to do is you want to focus on the final arrangements. We don't want to be like how James Brown funeral and the amount of time it took to get James Brother Brown laid to rest. That's not a dignified closure of a person's memory. And what we want to do, we want to focus on that. Focus on carrying out the wishes. So whether it's a memorial service, whether it's a burial, cremation, whatever it is that your loved one wanted, focus on what they wanted and getting through that first. Because that's not the time it's not time to start dealing with the business of the property and the bills and things until after you've laid this person to rest and you've cleared up that bandwidth to now deal with the estate. The second thing that you want to do not rush to notify anyone of death. Don't go calling the bank. Don't go calling the mortgage company. Don't take your time to first understand all the moving pieces of this person's affairs before you start notifying different institutions that this person has passed away, because you could create a mess by notifying people too soon. So slow down on making notifications and closing bank accounts and stuff. Don't do it. And what you want to do is you want to complete an inventory of the estate, and you want to see, okay, what's the income that's been coming into this estate? What are the monthly expenses that are going out from this estate? What are all of the property and the value that needs to be distributed from this estate? And what debts are owed by this estate? You need to understand this first before you go giving anything to anybody. And again, you got people coming around, vultures flying around, dead flesh. Everybody got a ghetto story. They got an emergency and want none of that until you first understand the inventory. And I am going to provide you with a PDF link to everything that I'm saying as like a little quick guide. Again, download it, keep it for yourself, share it with your children. This stuff will save your sanity when you are in that position to have to make these decisions. So once you understand that, now you need to be on the lookout for what are called priority claims against the estate. And this is what I'm talking about when I'm saying what bills you need to pay. It is not your responsibility to pay all of the bills, but certain bills can get you personally liable and on the hook as the administrator and as the executor or trustee if you do not respect these priority debts that are owed under the law by an estate. And so, generally speaking, each state is going to have statutes that lay this out in specificity. I'm just giving some general guidance here. This is not legal advice, this is general legal information. The first category of bills that you as the administrator and or trustee want to make sure you're taking care of are the expenses for the final arrangements. This is going to include the funeral home. This is going to include the crematorium if you have a cremation taken care of, or the cemetery. Those expenses are considered priority under most state law. The second category of expenses, bills that you have to pay, that you need to be on the lookout for, that you may be responsible for taking care of as the trustee or the administrator, are expenses for final hospital illness and the treatment and the final death. So if you have a loved one who passes away in a hospital, then whatever that illness was and those medical expenses that are attached to the treatment of that final illness that led up to their death, those bills may be necessary to pay if they have not been covered by insurance or other means. Again, this is why you want to have the inventory done of the estate so that you can be aware of these kind of bills that will still be coming to your loved one as debts that are owed by the estate. And in the final category of financial affairs that you should be aware of and you may need to make sure that you are dealing with as the trustee, administrator, or the executor, are going to be debts that are attached to collateral. So this is going to be your mortgage, right? If the trustee is, if your loved one has left a property to their child, but there's still a mortgage on there, that mortgage must be paid in order for that transfer to remain with the person who gets the benefit of the transfer. The mortgage has to be paid. And we call that you taking the property subject to the lien, subject to the loan, subject to the debt that is attached to that collateral. Yes, you can get the house, but you are going to have to pay the mortgage. You as the trustee will be in a position, or as the administrator or as the executor, you're in a position where you get to figure out if this has been a conversation that you have with your loved one. Did you leave an insurance policy to pay the mortgage off? Or did you already have a conversation with this person that they're going to have to pay that mortgage off? And then there may be some additional steps that need to be taken to address that transfer with the actual mortgage company. And each set of mortgage documents is going to be different when it comes to these types of things. But the mortgages have to be paid. The same exact thing applies with car loans. You may have a really nice Bugatti or whatever these fancy cars are out here. If there is an auto loan attached to it, the person who is intended to receive it can receive transfer of that title, but it is still subject to the auto loan. The auto loan doesn't disappear when the person dies. And the same is true with any other secured debt. Any debt that is secured by property is a priority claim against the estate. You cannot take property from the estate and keep it without respecting the loan that's attached to it. So I hope that this kind of simplifies what you should be on the lookout for if you are ever in a position where you are the trusted person, you are the administrator, you are the trustee or executor, that you think back to this conversation, share this conversation with your children, and practical stuff that helps us navigate one of the darkest times in life, one of the most difficult times in life. I wish none of us ever had to experience loss. But since that's a part of the life that we live, this adventure that we're in on this realm, then we can help support each other through that. And that's the purpose of today's live. Thank you again for persevering with me today. And I look forward to doing this again. What questions do you have about family law estate planning that I can answer in these live streams? I'm happy to just continue the conversation around us being better human beings for one another. We love each other, but sometimes that love, the way we express that love is kind of rough. So happy to bring any other resources and discussions that will help you navigate or prevent having to have court drama and keeping our families out of the court. It's not a dignified place for us to be when we're already hurting. And this type of insight is absolutely intended to keep our working families, keep our communities out of court. I appreciate y'all and love you so much. Be blessed and encouraged. I'm going to go ahead and log off now. And I thank you again. Be blessed.